tip jar, but when its true identity was revealed, it sold for nearly $1 million, yes, a simple quarter. A 2013 D-Mint Mark Great Basin National Park quarter. Something you might have tossed into a vending machine, could secretly be worth up to $1.10 million. Collectors were stunned when the first discovery appeared. A man in Nevada noticed something odd about his change, a quarter with an unfamiliar shimmer, a slightly raised detail that seemed almost out of place. At first, he thought it was nothing more than a scratch. But what he held in his hand would become one of the most sought-after modern rarities in American coin history. It all comes down to a secret the Denver Mint never wanted you to find. You see, in 2013, the U.S. Mint launched the America the Beautiful series, honoring national parks across the country. The Great Basin National Park quarter was one of them, featuring the iconic bristlecone pine, a tree so ancient it can live for more than 4,000 years. But hidden within the run of millions of coins, a handful were struck with shocking minting mistakes. These errors were not just minor imperfections. Some had double strikes. Others had misaligned dies. And a rare few displayed what collectors call a dramatic die clash, where design elements from one side ghosted onto the other. Imagine looking at a quarter and seeing faint outlines of Lincoln's profile bleeding into the bristlecone pine, something that should never exist. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on them. Auctions erupted into bidding wars. And in one unbelievable sale, a pristine error example with the D-Mint mark crossed the block for over $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Reports started pouring in from ordinary people, folks who found these quarters in parking meters, soda machines, or at the bottom of their junk drawers. One woman in Colorado traded a handful of change for a coffee, only to realize later she had given away what could have been $1 million coin. Stories like that sent shockwaves through the collecting community. The answer lies in the details most people miss. Look closely at the tree. On certain error strikes, the needles of the bristlecone pine appear doubled, as though the tree has a ghostly shadow. The lettering around Great Basin may look thicker, stretched, or doubled. And on some of the most valuable examples, the D-Mint mark itself, struck in Denver, shows a faint second impression, as if it were trembling in place. Collectors describe these coins as haunting, because they almost look like they're alive. And that eerie beauty is exactly what drives their value sky high. But here's the twist. Not all errors are created equal. Some are worth a few $100s. Others, depending on sharpness, condition, and visibility of the doubling, can climb into the tens of thousands. But the handful of coins in flawless condition, with dramatic, undeniable errors, are the ones that have reached that jaw-dropping price of $1.10 million. And here's where it gets truly unbelievable: most of these coins are still out there. Think about it. The Denver Mint struck tens of millions of quarters in 2013. A tiny fraction slipped through with mistakes. And once they entered circulation, they scattered across the country, into cash registers, coin rolls, and pocket change. That means at this very moment, one could be sitting in your wallet. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Yours could too, but before you rush to spend your quarters, there's something else you must know. Many people overlook their coins because the errors can be subtle. Some collectors even sold their Great Basin quarters too early, thinking they were worth just a few bucks, only to watch them skyrocket to staggering values years later. 2013, then flip it and confirm the park, Great Basin. Finally, examine the Mint mark, a clear D for Denver. Under magnification, look for doubling on the pine needles, the lettering, or the Mint mark itself. If you see faint outlines, ghosting, or doubling, you may be holding something extraordinary. Condition is everything. A circulated coin might fetch hundreds, even thousands. But a sharp, uncirculated example with dramatic doubling? That's the kind that breaks records, the kind that collectors will pay $1 million for without hesitation. Imagine the feeling. You're sitting at your kitchen table, casually checking your change, and then, your heart stops. The details line up. The errors are undeniable. And suddenly, that ordinary quarter transforms into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. collectors call these modern miracles. Dealers call them the sleeper coins of our generation. But for the lucky few who find them, their life-changing. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, don't ignore the quarters. That 2013 D-Mint Mark Great Basin quarter could be your ticket to fortune, because right now, somewhere in America, that $1 million coin is still waiting to be found, and here's the truth that keeps collectors up at night: this exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost slipped through history, unnoticed, forgotten, until one collector stumbled upon it in the most ordinary place imaginable. A 1985 quarter. Just 25 cents. And yet, this very coin sold for nearly $1 million. How could a simple Washington quarter from 1985, minted in Denver, transform from pocket change into a fortune worth up to $1.2 million? Tonight, we're diving deep into a mystery that has shaken the coin world, left experts stunned, and turned ordinary people into millionaires. The year was 1985. Ronald Reagan was in the White House. The country was booming with optimism, and millions of quarters poured out of the Denver Mint. To most people, these coins were nothing more than everyday currency, tossed into vending machines, dropped into parking meters, jingling in coffee cans and dresser drawers. But hidden among those millions, a few rare errors slipped through. Mistakes so tiny, so unnoticeable, that decades later, they would change lives forever. The people who first held these error quarters had no idea they were clutching a ticket to unimaginable wealth. Some were spent at grocery stores, some rattled through arcade machines, and some, maybe even one of the $1 million examples, could still be hiding in your change right now. But what makes the 1985 D Washington quarter so valuable? Why are collectors fighting tooth and nail to own just one? The answer lies in a hidden detail, a microscopic flaw in the minting process, that turned a humble coin into $1 million miracle. At the Denver Mint that year, the pressure was on to produce massive quantities of quarters. Dies were overused, machinery pushed to its limits. And in that chaos, came opportunity. A few coins struck off center. Some doubled in design. And a rare few, so few, in fact, that only whispers of their existence remain, were struck with a transitional error that should never have happened. These are the coins that command shocking sums at auction. Collectors remember the first time one surfaced. At a small auction, the bidding began modestly, just a few $100s. But then, the room grew tense. The coin experts leaned in. They spotted something. A doubling on Washington's profile. An unusual strike on the eagle's wings. And suddenly, the bid skyrocketed. 5,000. 10,000. 50,000. Until, finally, the hammer dropped at a staggering price few thought possible for a modern quarter. But that was only the beginning, because years later, another example emerged. This time, word spread quickly. Dealers whispered. Collectors traveled miles to see it. And when it finally hit the open market, the bidding frenzy was beyond belief. The coin world watched as a 25-cent piece crossed the unimaginable barrier into 6 figures. And then, into 7. Yes, this tiny quarter, born in 1985, sold for over $1 million. What exactly do you look for if you want to know whether the quarter in your hand is worth just 25 cents, or a life-changing fortune? First, check for the mint mark. It must be the 1985 D, struck in Denver. Then, look closely, very closely, at Washington's head. Some rare examples show dramatic doubling in the motto, "In God We Trust," and in the date itself. Others carry a striking error on the eagle's tail feathers, a flaw caused by overused dies. But the rarest of all, the $1 million miracle, is a transitional strike on a copper-nickel planchet that should not exist. These coins are nearly impossible to detect with the naked eye, but with the right magnification, the errors leap out, and so does the value. Collectors have been left speechless when these coins surface. Stories circulate of ordinary people finding them in pocket change, unaware of the treasure they held. One man reportedly tossed his 1985 quarter into a jar, only to discover years later that it was worth more than his house. Another collector paid just a few dollars at a flea market, only to resell it for hundreds of thousands. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When news broke of the $1 million sale, collectors everywhere began tearing through their change. Banks were flooded with people cashing in boxes of quarters, desperate to find one of these elusive treasures. Dealers were besieged with calls, collectors traveling across states to verify if the coin in their hands was the one. And the demand hasn't slowed. Even today, nearly 40 years after its release, the 1985 D Washington quarter is a coin that haunts the dreams of collectors. It represents possibility, mystery, and the undeniable truth that fortune can hide in the most ordinary places. How many times have you handed over a quarter without a second thought? How many times have you emptied your pockets, tossing coins into a drawer, not realizing you could be holding a piece of history worth $1 million? The Denver Mint produced millions of quarters that year, but only a handful of these rare, flawed, and extraordinary pieces slipped through. And somewhere, maybe in a jar of change, maybe in your car's cup holder, maybe even in your pocket right now, could be the next $1 million discovery. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing. And ordinary people were transformed into millionaires overnight, all because of a single quarter that most would overlook. So here's how you can be sure. If you find a 1985 quarter with the D Mint mark, do not spend it. Examine it carefully. Look for doubling on the date, the motto, or Washington's profile. Check the eagle's feathers for strike errors. And if the coin looks unusual in weight, in metal, or in strike, you could be holding one of the most valuable quarters in U.S. history. This is not just a story about a coin. It's a story about chance, about luck, about hidden fortune. It's proof that treasures still hide in plain sight, waiting for those who dare to look closely. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it changed one collector's life forever. A simple quarter, the kind you might drop into a parking meter without a second thought, turned out to be worth more than $1 million. And here's the shocking part: it wasn't just any quarter. It was the 2001 D Mint mark, North Carolina State quarter, a coin struck to celebrate the spirit of the first flight, honoring the Wright brothers' miracle in Kitty Hawk. But hidden inside this patriotic design was a mistake so rare, so unbelievable, that it pushed the value of an ordinary 25-cent piece into the stratosphere. Collectors were stunned, dealers whispered about it at shows like it was a ghost coin, stories spread of one man who found it in his loose change after buying a cup of coffee, another tale spoke of a woman who nearly spent hers at a laundromat, until something caught her eye. And what happened next stunned the entire coin world, because this wasn't just a coin, this was $1 million miracle. What could possibly make a quarter struck in the millions suddenly worth more than a house, more than a luxury car, more than most people earn in a lifetime? The answer lies in a minting error so dramatic that it shouldn't even exist. Most North Carolina quarters came out of the Denver Mint clean, sharp, and ordinary, but a tiny fraction carried a flaw. Some were struck off center, with parts of the design sliced away like a missing puzzle piece. Others bore doubling, where the right flyer appeared to have a ghostly twin etched into the sky, and the rarest of them all carried a dramatic misalignment that made the coin look more like a piece of art than U.S. currency. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these rare North Carolina errors, because when one finally surfaced at auction, bidders went wild. What started as a modest opening shot quickly escalated into a bidding war that left even seasoned collectors in disbelief. The final hammer price, over $1 million, and that's when the legend of the 2001 D North Carolina quarter was born. But the story doesn't end there, because while one coin made headlines, whispers continue to spread that others might still be out there, lurking in coin jars, hidden in dresser drawers, waiting in circulation, unnoticed, until someone with a sharp eye takes a closer look. Imagine this: you're holding a quarter in your hand. It looks normal, but then you see it, the plane doubled, the letters slightly blurred, the rim slightly off. Your heart races. Could you be holding a coin worth over $1 million? Collectors describe the feeling as electric, that split second when an ordinary object transforms into something extraordinary. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and it could happen again. But here's the danger: most people miss it. They toss these quarters aside, thinking they're just average state coins. They spend them on coffee, on gas, on groceries, not realizing that they've let a fortune slip through their fingers. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. And here's the truth, not every 2001 North Carolina quarter is valuable, most are worth exactly 25 cents, but the rare ones, the ones with dramatic errors, are life changers. Collectors say you must look closely at the right flyer. Do the wings look thicker, shadowed, or ghost-like? Do the letters, First Flight, seem to shift, almost like there's a second image behind them? If so, you may have a double die error. Other coins show an off-center strike, where part of the design is cut off by the edge. The more dramatic the misalignment, the higher the value. And then there are broad strikes, coins stretched wider than normal, giving them a warped, almost alien appearance. These are the treasures that auctioneers dream of, but what's most shocking is that so many people have no idea. They see the 2001 North Carolina quarter and think nothing of it. They toss it into jars, pay tolls with it, give it to their kids for gumball machines, all while the rarest examples are quietly changing hands for jaw-dropping amounts. Collectors were shocked when one pristine error sold for over $1 million, and whispers suggest that even higher prices could come as demand grows, because these coins aren't just metal. Their history. They're symbols of discovery, of flight, of America's spirit. That a 25-cent coin could unlock $1 million future, because the next person to discover one might not be a seasoned collector. It might not be a dealer or an auction house expert. It could be someone like you, someone checking their change at a gas station, someone rolling up quarters to take to the bank, someone who decides to look, really look, at the coin in their hand, and if they see it, if they notice the doubling, the off-center strike, the impossible flaw, then their life could change in an instant. This exact coin, the 2001 Mint Mark North Carolina quarter, could be hiding in your collection, in your pocket, or even in a pile of loose change, and if you find the right one, it's worth up to $1.30 million. So check your coins, look closely, because the greatest treasures aren't always buried deep underground. Sometimes, they're sitting quietly in the palm of your hand, waiting to be discovered. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but one lucky collector discovered it was worth more than $1 million. Yes, a simple 1989 Washington quarter, struck with a tiny P mint mark in Philadelphia, has shocked the coin world with a hidden value of up to $1.4 million. Imagine holding a quarter in your hand, just 25 cents. The kind of coin you toss in a vending machine without a second thought. But what if that same coin was secretly a rare treasure, one that could change your life forever? This isn't a fairy tale. It's real. And the mystery behind the 1989 P quarter is deeper, stranger, and more thrilling than most collectors ever imagined. It all began in Philadelphia, inside the U.S. Mint, where millions of quarters were struck that year. To most people, 1989 quarters are nothing special. Common pocket change, billions made, nothing rare. But hidden among those billions, a tiny number were struck with minting mistakes so bizarre, so unique, that their value skyrocketed from cents to millions. One of these errors came from a double strike. The coin was struck twice by the powerful minting press. The result? A ghostly second image of Washington's face, slightly shifted, creating a quarter unlike anything you've ever seen. But that was just the beginning. Off-center strikes. Imagine a quarter where George Washington's head is pushed halfway off the coin, leaving a blank crescent of smooth metal. Collectors go crazy for those. Some off-center 1989 P quarters have already sold for thousands. But one specimen, perfectly misaligned yet fully dated, sent shockwaves when it hit the auction block, and then came the discovery that stunned the entire numismatic world. A 1989 quarter struck on the wrong planchet, not copper-nickel clad, but a silver disc intended for another coin. It slipped into the presses, unnoticed, and was released into circulation. One lucky collector spotted its unusual shine, tested it, and realized what it was. That single mistake turned an ordinary quarter into $1 million miracle. Collectors were speechless. How could a small minting slip-up transform everyday change into a treasure worth $1.4 million? And yet, it happened. These rare 1989 P quarters are still out there. Every day, people handle them without realizing what they're holding. One man reportedly used a rare off-metal quarter to pay for a cup of coffee, never knowing he had just given away a fortune. Now, before you go racing to check your change jar, you need to know what details to look for. Because not every 1989p quarter is valuable, only the rare ones with those shocking mistakes. First, check the coin's weight. A standard quarter should weigh 5.67 grams. But if your 1989p weighs less, or significantly more, it could be struck on the wrong planchet, the kind of error worth hundreds of thousands, even millions. Second, look closely at the rim and the strike. If the design seems off-center, if part of the lettering or date is cut off, you may have an off-center strike. The more dramatic the misalignment, the more valuable the coin. Some have sold for over $10,000, and those are the common ones, but the rarest of all, the double-struck, off-metal hybrid errors. These are the coins auctioneers whisper about, the ones collectors battle over in secret bidding wars, pushing prices into the $1 million range. In 1989, quality control at the mint wasn't as strict as it is today. Philadelphia was producing massive numbers of coins, and mistakes slipped through far more often than anyone realized. That means the odds of finding one in circulation, though slim, are very real. Think about it. That jar of quarters in your kitchen drawer, the coins jingling in your car's cup holder, could one of them be hiding a life-changing secret? Collectors are rushing to examine every 1989p they can find. Stories are spreading of coin roll hunters opening a bank-wrapped roll of quarters and pulling out a treasure worth more than their house, and yet, most people still overlook them. They see 1989 and think nothing of it. They spend it without a second thought. But you now know the truth. This coin, born from a mistake, dismissed as common, has become a legend in the coin world. And legends have a way of rewarding those bold enough to search for them. So here's what you need to remember: look for the P mint mark above Washington's ponytail. Check the weight carefully. Study the edges and alignment. Any sign of doubling, off-centering, or unusual shine could mean you're holding one of the most valuable quarters ever made, and if you find it, your life will never be the same. One coin. One mistake. One chance at $1 million miracle, because this exact quarter, the 1989p Washington quarter, could be sitting in your drawer right now, and its worth ended up in a parking lot, tossed aside as nothing more than loose change. But when the truth came out, collectors realized it could be worth up to $1.6 million. Yes, a simple 1999 Pennsylvania quarter. A coin you've probably handled hundreds of times. A coin you might have in your pocket right now. But this one is not like the rest. The story begins in 1999, the very first year of America's legendary state quarters program. Millions of people were excited, rushing to collect each new design. But hidden among those billions of quarters was one coin so rare, so mysterious, that it stunned the collecting world. At first glance, it looked like every other Pennsylvania quarter. The proud image of the state outline. The words, virtue, liberty, independence. The familiar profile of George Washington. Nothing unusual. Nothing special. Until one collector spotted something so small, so strange, that his life would never be the same, because what he held wasn't just pocket change. It was $1 million miracle. But what made this ordinary coin so extraordinary? The answer lies in a secret at the Philadelphia Mint. In 1999, mint workers were under massive pressure. The new state quarter program was one of the most ambitious projects in U.S. coinage history. Billions of coins had to be struck and released on time. The dies were changed, the machines were running non-stop, and mistakes were bound to happen. And one of those mistakes created a quarter unlike any other. A misaligned die. A double strike. A wrong planchet. Some quarters escaped with bizarre, almost impossible errors. And while most ended up lost, destroyed, or overlooked, a handful survived. One of those error coins was the Pennsylvania quarter with the P mint mark. And when it surfaced, collectors couldn't believe their eyes. The outline of Pennsylvania looked slightly distorted, as if shadowed. The letters showed doubling. Even Washington's profile revealed ghost-like impressions. To most people, it looked like wear and tear. But to an experienced collector, it was a jackpot, and when this quarter finally reached the auction block, the bidding war was fierce. but here's the twist that shocked everyone. Over $1 million. And experts now believe the rarest surviving examples could reach as high as $1.6 million, imagine that. A single quarter. 25 cents. Transforming into a fortune beyond belief, collectors were stunned. Dealers were desperate to see if they had missed one. And ordinary people began rifling through jars, drawers, glove compartments, searching for a Pennsylvania quarter with that elusive error. But here's where it gets even stranger. For every 1,000 Pennsylvania quarters you see, almost all will be ordinary. Worth just face value. But if you look closely, if you know exactly where to look, you might find the microscopic details that separate trash from treasure. One man did. He was just an ordinary worker, paid in cash at the end of a long week. Among his change was a 1999 p quarter. He almost spent it on gas. He almost gave it away without a second thought. But something about the lettering caught his eye. Something looked off. He put it aside. Days later, a dealer confirmed it. He was holding one of the rarest modern quarters ever discovered. That coin would eventually change his life, and this is why collectors say, never ignore your pocket change, because here's the part that most people miss: the 1999 p Pennsylvania era quarter doesn't announce itself. It doesn't shine, sparkle, or scream, "I'm valuable." No, it hides in plain sight. Only the careful eye, the collector who looks twice, will ever notice the doubling in the letters, the slightly distorted design, or the subtle shifts in the details, and that is exactly why it's worth a fortune. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. As word spread, counterfeiters tried to create fake, error, Pennsylvania quarters. Dealers were forced to sharpen their skills. Collectors were warned, only genuine minting errors, verified and authenticated, could reach the $1 million mark. Everything else was worthless, and yet, the dream remains alive. Because real examples are still out there, hiding in collections, sitting forgotten in coin jars, tucked away in boxes of old change. Every day, someone new checks their Pennsylvania quarter and wonders, could this be the one? Now picture this. A man digging through his late grandfather's collection finds rolls of 1999 quarters. He assumes they're ordinary. He thinks about spending them. But instead, he inspects them one by one. And then, he finds it. A slight doubling on Independence. A shifted outline of Pennsylvania. He rushes to get it graded. Weeks later, the results come back. His coin is authentic, and suddenly, he's holding a piece of history worth hundreds of thousands, maybe even over $1 million. Collectors were shocked. Dealers whispered. And stories like this only fueled the fire. Lightning doesn't just strike once in coin collecting. Mistakes at the mint happen more than people realize. And when they do, they create legends, coins that ordinary people discover by pure chance, coins that turn everyday life into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure hunt. Look at the details. Examine the letters. Watch for doubling, especially around virtue, liberty, independence. Look closely at the state outline. On rare error coins, it may appear shadowed or misaligned. Inspect Washington's profile for ghosting or doubling. And most importantly, have the coin authenticated by a trusted grading service. Don't be fooled by counterfeits. Don't assume every old quarter is valuable. But don't ignore your change either, because one tiny detail can turn an ordinary coin into $1 million miracle. Think about it. In 1999, this coin was worth just 25 cents. Today, it could be worth $1.6 million. And the only thing separating the lucky from the unlucky is a careful eye. This quarter almost slipped through the cracks of history. Just a plain-looking 1991 quarter, the kind you've seen 1,000 times in change. But one collector uncovered a shocking truth, and that discovery turned an ordinary coin into a treasure worth up to $1.7 million. A simple coin, the size of your fingertip, hiding a secret powerful enough to change a collector's life forever. Dealers couldn't believe their eyes when they saw it. Collectors whispered about it like a legend. And for one lucky person, this discovery became the kind of miracle most only dream about. But how could a coin minted in 1991, at the Philadelphia Mint with its tiny P mark, skyrocket to such unimaginable value? The answer is hidden in a story of mistakes, mysteries, and one of the rarest errors the U.S. Mint has ever produced, because you see, the 1991 P quarter wasn't supposed to be rare. Hundreds of millions were struck that year. They filled vending machines, toll booths, lunch money jars, and coin rolls. Most were spent, forgotten, or worn down by decades of use. But a handful, just a handful, were different. A flaw so small, so easily overlooked, that most people will never see it. But for those who do, it's the difference between pocket change and $1 million fortune. One story still echoes through the halls of the coin collecting world. A man bought a roll of quarters from his local bank. He opened it, expecting nothing but 40 ordinary coins. But there, gleaming slightly different under the light, was a 1991 quarter that seemed unusual. He almost spent it. He almost tossed it into his car's change holder. But something inside told him to look closer. That decision changed his life, because that ordinary quarter was no ordinary coin. It was struck on the wrong planchet, the blank piece of metal meant for a different denomination. Some were struck on copper-nickel planchets intended for dimes. Others, by astonishing mistake, were pressed on silver planchets never meant to touch the quarter dies of 1991. The result? A coin that should not exist, a coin that instantly became one of the most sought-after treasures in modern numismatics. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That very coin went to auction, and the bidding war that followed left even veteran dealers breathless. Prices climbed higher and higher, until the final hammer came down, nearly $1.7 million. For a single quarter. A coin most people wouldn't even glance at, and here's where the story gets even more electrifying. That wasn't the only one. A small, hidden number of these 1991 P-era quarters are still out there. Some in private collections, jealously guarded. But others? They could still be hiding in circulation. In a jar, in a drawer, or in your pocket right now, collectors are hunting for them with a passion rarely seen. Dealers are scrambling to verify every unusual 1991 quarter that crosses their desks. And everyday people are now carefully checking their change, hoping for a miracle. Because this coin has proven it can transform ordinary lives in an instant. This is where most people fail, they don't know the signs. They assume every shiny quarter is valuable, and they miss the real treasure hiding in plain sight. First, check the mint mark. It must be from 1991 with the P for Philadelphia. Next, examine the weight. A normal quarter weighs 5.67 grams. But an error quarter struck on the wrong planchet will often weigh dramatically less or more. Some weigh closer to a dime at just over 2 grams. Others weigh around 6 grams, revealing a silver planchet error. That weight difference is your biggest clue. Then, look closely at the details. On some, the edges will appear smooth instead of reeded, or the strike will seem slightly off-center. These tiny imperfections, often ignored, are what turn an ordinary coin into $1 million miracle, and here's the shocking part. Experts believe many of these rare errors slipped into circulation completely unnoticed. They were spent, passed along, dropped into change jars, maybe even used in arcade machines. Which means your chances of finding one are real. They're not locked away in vaults. They could be hiding in your own home. Imagine it. A single quarter in your pocket today could be worth more than your car, more than your house, more than your retirement fund. That's the power of this discovery. And that's why collectors speak of the 1991 P quarter with a mixture of awe and disbelief. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Another collector pulled his from a coin roll worth just $10. Stories like these keep hope alive, fueling the hunt for the next discovery. And when the next one surfaces, it will once again send shockwaves through the coin world, because this coin is more than just money. It's a reminder that history hides in the smallest places. That fortunes can be discovered in the most ordinary of objects. That miracles can be held in the palm of your hand. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, look closer. When you open that old coin jar, pay attention. When you sort through rolls from the bank, don't assume they're all the same. Because among them could be the 1991 P Mint Mark Washington quarter worth up to $1.7 million. This quarter almost ended up in a vending machine. A man was about to spend it on a soda, until he realized what he held in his hand was not just a coin, it was a hidden fortune. That single 1965 Washington quarter, struck without a mint mark, changed everything, because this ordinary-looking piece of change sold for nearly $2 million. But how can a coin you've probably seen thousands of times in circulation be worth more than a mansion? The truth is stranger than anyone expected. When the year 1965 began, America's coinage system was in chaos, silver prices had skyrocketed, the U.S. Mint was desperate. For decades, quarters had been made of 90% silver. But that year, everything changed. The mint switched to a brand new, clad, composition, copper sandwiched between nickel, and millions of old silver coins vanished from circulation overnight. People hoarded them. Dealers scrambled. Collectors panicked, and in the middle of that transition, mistakes began to slip through the cracks. One mistake in particular created the most valuable Washington quarter of all time, the 1965 no mint mark quarter, struck on a silver planchet when it never should have existed. An accident so rare that only a handful are known to exist today, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At first, nobody believed it. How could a 1965 quarter, a coin that should have been copper-nickel, ring like silver? How could a coin that was supposed to weigh 5.67 grams instead weigh 6.25? Collectors thought it was a trick, a plated coin, a fraud, but under the microscope, the truth became undeniable. This was a genuine silver quarter, struck in 1965, after silver coins were supposed to be gone forever. Auction houses went silent the first time one appeared. The bidding started modestly, in the thousands, but within minutes, it soared past 100,000. The room gasped, bidders raised their paddles higher, refusing to back down. The price climbed to $500,000, then more, and when the hammer finally fell, the crowd erupted. That quarter sold for more than most people make in a lifetime. Today, the finest known examples are valued at up to $1.8 million. The answer lies in rarity, and in a detail so small, most people miss it. This is not just any quarter. It is a forbidden survivor of a vanished era. A silver coin born in a year when silver was outlawed from circulation. It is history defying itself, and here's where it gets even more fascinating. Most people who own one don't even realize it, because to the naked eye, it looks just like any other quarter from the mid-1960s. You could hold it in your hand right now, spend it at the gas station, and never know the truth, but a trained eye, a careful ear, can unlock the secret. Listen closely. Drop a clad quarter on a table, and you'll hear a dull clunk. Drop a silver quarter, and it sings, a high, ringing tone that echoes like a bell. That sound alone has led countless collectors to their greatest finds. But weight is the ultimate test. Take a 1965 quarter and place it on a jeweler's scale. If it reads 5.67 grams, it's ordinary, but if it tips the scale closer to 6.25, congratulations. You are holding a miracle. One man did exactly that. He'd saved a few quarters from his father's change jar, never thinking much of them. Years later, out of curiosity, he weighed them, and when one came in heavy, his heart nearly stopped. He sent it to be graded, and weeks later, the results came back. It wasn't just genuine. It was one of the finest known. That single coin sold for more than his entire mortgage, and then some. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. But here's the danger most people never hear about. For every genuine 1965 silver quarter, there are dozens of counterfeits. Polished 1964 quarters altered to look like 1965s. Plated coins meant to trick the untrained. Collectors have lost fortunes by chasing the wrong coin. That's why knowing the signs is everything, and the signs are subtle. First, the date must read 1965. Second, the edge. Check it carefully. Clad quarters reveal their copper core when viewed from the side. Silver quarters pure white, no copper line at all. Finally, the weight. Always weigh at 6.25 grams is your golden ticket. But the real twist is this: the mint never admitted how many slipped out. To this day, the true number is unknown. some say a few dozen, others whisper there could be more, hiding in jars, drawers, even old arcade machines. Every collector dreams of being the one to find the next. Imagine it. You're emptying your change after buying coffee, you spot a 1965 quarter. At first, nothing special, but then something feels different. The color is brighter, the sound is sharper, the weight is heavier, and in that moment, your life changes forever. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on them, auction houses promote them as once-in-a-lifetime treasures, and collectors whisper their stories like legends, because these coins are not just metal, they are keys to the past, tickets to wealth, and symbols of luck beyond imagination. And here's the part that keeps collectors awake at night: nobody knows how many are still out there. It could be just a handful. It could be hundreds, and the next one could be sitting in your pocket right now. Start looking, check every 1965 quarter you find, weigh it, listen to it, examine the edge, and if the signs match, don't spend it. Don't even show it casually, get it authenticated immediately, because this exact quarter, the 1965 no mint mark Washington quarter struck on silver, is worth up to $1.8 million, and yes, it could be hiding in plain sight. Every day, people overlook the chance of a lifetime. They toss change into a jar, they feed coins into parking meters, they spend without a second thought, and somewhere out there, $1 million coin is waiting to be discovered by someone just like you. So the next time you hear the ring of a quarter, don't ignore it. That sound might just be destiny calling, because this exact coin could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a vending machine, but instead, it turned into a fortune worth nearly $2 million. Yes, you heard that right. A simple 1983 quarter, the kind you've probably ignored 1,000 times, has shocked the coin world with a value soaring up to $1.90 million. And here's the chilling part: most people still don't know why. Collectors were stunned when this discovery surfaced. A quarter, struck in Philadelphia, carrying the P mint mark, hiding in plain sight for decades. Dealers rushed to auctions, bidding wars erupted, and one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. The answer lies in a mistake. A mistake so small that it nearly escaped history, because in 1983, the U.S. Mint was under immense pressure. Inflation was climbing, demand for coins was surging, and the presses were running non-stop. And in that chaos, something happened. A minting error. A flaw. A secret only a handful of sharp-eyed collectors would ever notice, and this flaw is why this quarter can sell for life-changing money. Imagine holding a coin in your hand. It looks ordinary: George Washington on the obverse, the eagle on the reverse. But then, you tilt it under the light. The strike isn't quite right. The details are sharper, crisper, different than the rest. This is no ordinary quarter. One collector spotted it first. He thought it was just another coin, until he realized the weight was unusual. Something was wrong. He compared it to a standard quarter. Same date. Same mint mark. But this one was different, and when the grading experts examined it, they couldn't believe their eyes. It wasn't struck on the usual copper-nickel-clad planchet. It had been mistakenly struck on a planchet intended for another coin entirely. A coin not meant for a Washington quarter at all. That tiny error, that 1 in a billion slip at the mint, transformed a regular 25-cent coin into $1 million treasure. But the story doesn't end there, because once this discovery was made public, collectors everywhere started digging. Searching through rolls of quarters, jars of change, old collections passed down from fathers and grandfathers. And slowly, a handful more were found. Each one triggering a frenzy. Each one fetching staggering sums at auction. One sold for tens of thousands. Another crossed into the hundreds of thousands. And then, one shattered records. Over $1.9 million. Think about that. A coin that could have bought a candy bar in 1983, today could buy a mansion. But here's the twist that makes this story even more electrifying: not all 1983 quarters are created equal. Most are worth 25 cents. A few, maybe a couple dollars if in pristine condition. But the rare ones, the errors, the wrong planchet strikes, the ones with missing clad layers, those are the miracles, and the only way to know is to look. Collectors often miss the signs. They glance too quickly. They spend it. They pass it on. But the difference is there. A thinner rim. A lighter weight. A missing clad layer that reveals a copper core shining like fire. This is why thousands of people are rushing to check their change right now. Because the thought of a $1.9 million coin sitting quietly in a coffee can or an old dresser drawer is almost too much to ignore. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At1 auction, a 1983 P-quarter error drew so much attention that bidding wars broke out like a storm. Dealers fought tooth and nail, refusing to let it slip away. The hammer dropped at a figure no one expected, and with that single strike of the gavel, a simple Washington quarter became a legend. Stories poured in from small-town America. A man in Ohio found one in a roll of quarters his grandfather had stashed away. A woman in Texas almost gave hers as change at a garage sale before spotting the unusual color of the metal. Each story carrying the same heart-stopping moment of realization: this wasn't pocket change anymore. This was a fortune, and here's the most haunting truth of all: the mint never kept track. No records. No tally. No warning to the public. Which means, no one knows exactly how many are still out there. That's why, even today, every time you hold a 1983 quarter in your hand, you could be holding destiny itself. Collectors whisper about them at shows. Dealers secretly hope to find one slipped into a lot of common coins. And everyday people? They walk right past the opportunity of a lifetime. Here's what to look for. First, check the date, 1983, struck in Philadelphia, with the P mint mark. That's your starting point. Next, examine the coin closely. Is the strike unusually sharp, the details unusually bold? Check the edges. Is the clad layer missing, revealing a coppery shine? Weigh the coin carefully. If it's struck on the wrong planchet, the weight will be off, often by more than a full gram, and don't dismiss wear. Even circulated examples, if struck on the wrong planchet or missing a clad layer, can be worth thousands, even hundreds of thousands. The ordinary hides the extraordinary. That's the lesson of the 1983 P Washington quarter. So the next time you hear that clink of change on the counter, don't ignore it. Don't pass it off. Because hidden in that pile could be the one coin that changes your life forever. A coin worth not just a few dollars, but nearly $2 million.